Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this recording. I want to start by saying thank you to everybody, um, everyone who was involved with the production of Heroes, the creator, the writers, just the entire crew involved. This was a great show. It was an amazing contribution to the world. I can honestly say that this show was life changing. It was life altering for me, and no matter what, this show is always going to be my top favorite show. My buddies, my friends actually gotten tired of me talking about the show. It's like, bro, it only had 4 seasons. Why are you still talking about it? But this is going to be my contribution for the 19-year anniversary from when the first episode premiered. Um, so yeah, this is movies with love. I should have said that from the beginning. But yes, thank you for everybody, and thank you to the fans for keeping it alive for as long as it has been alive. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more in the future. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully I can be a part of it. But I wanna, so for my contribution to this amazing universe and to this 19-year anniversary, I believe it's 19-year anniversary. Yes, I'm going to explain the timeline of Heroes. Now, I am only going to explain the timeline of up to I'm gonna start by talking about the earliest timeline that we got on record, and then I'm going to end it right before the first episode of Heroes. So I'm mainly just gonna talk about the timeline before the first episode, and so yeah, I'm gonna do my best to do in chronological order. I do understand that there are some timeline inconsistencies, such as in the book that was written, Saving Charlie. I probably should give a note to the author. The author, I believe, was Ari Wellington, I believe, was the author. And she wrote Hero Saving Charlie. And I believe this book takes place in season 4 after Hero went back and saved Charlie. He, yeah, so that book kind of explains, that whole journey that Hero went through with Charlie and things like that. But there were some inconsistencies in the timeline for that book because there's two different dates as to when Hero and Charlie shared their first kiss, and there's also some timeline inconsistencies from Claire's age, and there's a few little plot holes. Also with when Mohinder's sister Shanti was born. And if you actually look at the first season, there are times when some characters would say, "Oh, Mohinder, you had a sister before you were born," but then at one point in the story, I believe Mohinder says he was 5 years old when his sister died. So it was like there is a plot hole there. So there are going to be a few inconsistencies in the timeline, but for general, the timeline that I have here is generally, how everything was canon, but there are going to be a few little dates that are off. But yeah. So let's start off by going back to the very beginning, the earliest recording that we have of someone having abilities. I'm sure a lot of people have wondered that. This is Pharaoh Khufu. Khufu. He was an Egyptian pharaoh. And the first time an ability was used is when Pharaoh Khufu used his abilities to levitate the material used to form the Great Pyramid of Giza. And there's a side novel called History of a Secret. And in History of a Secret, there's a young man named Abu Aswan, and he goes to the pyramids and he has like a vision of he has a vision of the pharaoh using his levitation abilities, and during the vision Abu ends up using it, and two guards interrupt his vision. They're like, "Hey, stop him!" And so he runs and goes to the library and ends up finding some texts about Khufu and finds out he's a descendant of this ancient pharaoh. Talks with his parents about it, or his father about it, and his father tells him that's impossible to lift rocks and keep your mouth shut for your own good. So Abu walks away, unconvinced of what his parents tried to tell him not to believe what he did. And Sanjog Lyre actually shows up in his vision. Sanjog was the little kid from season 4 playing with the soccer ball that he kicked to Mohinder, and Mohinder was, going through his visions on, if he should continue his research or not. So that kid finds this man Abu and gives him visions and helps him out with that. But yeah, so the next part in history is actually jumping way far ahead. Is in a natural history museum, and this was in the episode Godsend when we see that according to this museum, Takezo Kensei was actually born in the year of 1584. So yeah, in case anyone was ever wondering when Adam or yeah, Kensei was born, 1584. Now we're going to jump ahead to 1671. Hiro Nakamura actually teleports from Kirby Plaza back in 2006 and appears in a field outside of Kyoto, Japan. And he lands between some Japanese soldiers and the impersonator of Takezo Kensei. Um, I believe his name is called the Fake Kensei. And then Hero looks up, and everyone looks up, and they see the eclipse, and that's the finale of season 1. That was the year 1671. So now, um, some information about the episode 4 months later. Um, yeah, so Hero meets Kensei, and tell Kensei he needs to be a hero, and he needs to go to the village of Otsu, and Otsu was being burned. Sorry, and then Yaiko calls Kansei a thief for accepting the money to protect Atsu, but failing to do so. And then Hiro realizes that he may have created a rift and sets out to fix it and undo what he did. And that's when he begins to try and teach Kensei how to be a hero. Now, in the next episode, Lizards, this is still in 1671, Hiro steals Kensei's equipment. Hiro Nakamura steals Kensei's equipment and and engages in the battle of the 12 swords, I believe. Yes, he poses Kensei in the battle of the 12 swords and uses his ability to, of course, save Aiko. And then after Hiro returned the armor to Takeso Kensei, um, Kensei is ambushed by Whitebeard and shot with Whitebeard's men, and he is shot with 3 arrows. And then Hero is afraid, like, oh no, what did I do? These men just shot Kensei. Kensei was supposed to be this hero of Japan, and he just got shot with 3 arrows. And as Hero takes the arrows out, Kensei begins to heal, and so um, Hero realizes, oh, okay, so Kensei, he's not just a regular samurai, regular person. He's someone who has a superpower and ability. And we jump ahead to the episode Kindred of season 2. Um, Kensei, he requires something called the Fire Scroll, and and as Kensei is retrieving the Fire Scroll, Hiro Nakamura is writing on these tiny scrolls, and he's placing them within his sword as messages for the future, for his future friend, hundreds of years later, to eventually read the story of what he's going through. Now, in season 2 of the show, you will find that information, or you will find out who his friend is. Now we get into an episode, Fight or Flight, also in season two. Kinsei brings Hiro and Yako another part of a map to find Whitebeard's camp. The evil Whitebeard, who's a menace in Japan back in the 1671. And so they're trying to find these pieces of the map to find Whitebeard's camp and stop his tyranny. So Kinsei eventually finds another part of it. And so, yeah, yeah. So actually, they continue on for that journey for a while. So, yeah. So continuing on, the still in the same year, Hiro, Kensei, and Yaiko eventually find all the pieces, and they invade Whitebeard's camp. And they find a swordsman who tells them that he's made Whitebeard several weapons and guns to overthrow the emperor. This was a swordsman that 30 of them had held hostage. So anyway, after rescuing the swordsmith, which I believe the swordsmith was actually Yaiko's father. And yeah, so when things got a little rough as they started trying to rescue the swordsman, and Hiro ended up having to teleport Yaiko away. And as she does this, she actually recognizes Hiro's ability and says, "Oh no, the man behind the mask, that was you." Um, so I believe the swordsmith. I don't know if that was Yaiko's father or not, or if this. I think this was a regular swordsmith. So forgive me for getting that a little bit confused. But when this happens, Yaiko was said to be the lover of Kensei throughout history. However, Hiro Nakamura, when he teleports her and saves her life, she recognizes that the very first time she witnessed a heroic act by Kensei, that it was actually Hiro wearing a mask and it actually wasn't um, Takezo Kensei himself. So, once that happens, two of them basically confess that they're in love with each other and they kiss under the cherry blossom. Unfortunately, Kensei recognizes this and is like, "No, I'm grumpy about that." So eventually, Kensei knocks out Hiro to seal a deal with Whitebeard, and then yes, and then this is when uh, Kensei assists Whitebeard in capturing Yaiko's father. Eventually, Hiro does escape the camp, and he escapes with Yaiko and the swordsmith, which I believe was her dad. Yes, her dad. And Hiro goes back, returns to destroy Whitebeard's guns, and as he does this to destroy all the guns and the firearms, he is confronted by Kensei. So once he is confronted by Kensei, the two of them do engage in a short battle, and Hiro is forced to teleport away because as they're fighting, the guns and the gunpowder are actually on fire at the moment. So now the Kenzo Kensei is on the ground, and Hiro tries to offer him a hand and say, "I'm sorry that you saw me kissing the woman that you loved, but we got to get out of here. The guns are gonna blow. The gunpowder's gonna blow up." And Adam says, "No, I'm never gonna accept you." And so Hiro Nakamura teleports away, and the gunpowder explodes with Kensei still inside. Now, after this story line has ended and Hiro goes back to his own timeline after this battle, there is a point when the story between the princess and the dragon happens. Now, it can be translated that Hiro was the dragon and Yaiko was Takezo Kensei's heart, and the demand that the dragon had was that the story of Takezo Kensei his last story was that Kensei had a lover, which was a princess, and the dragon shows up, and the dragon comes demanding Takezo Kensei's lover. And Takezo Kensei says, "You want my heart? Take it." And he cuts his heart out and gives it to the dragon, and then he dies. And that's how the story of Kensei ends. And seeing it play out with Hiro and Kensei, Hiro could have actually ended up being the dragon the entire time, with Yaiko being the princess and, Adam being Kensei. However, it is not 100% confirmed that is what happened, and the actual identity of who the princess actually is unknown. But also, I believe during the Battle of the 12 Swords, I believe there's a point where Takezo Kensei actually defeats Whitebeard. So there is a point in history that's kind of missing there. But yeah, now to move on. Now we get 1 year later, 1672. Adam marries Helen. I know that's not how you pronounce her name, Helen. But Adam I believe he's been married 9 times or 10 times. So this is when he has one of his first wives, Helen. She is his first wife, and she is from Germany. Their relationship or marriage actually ended when she grew older, and Kensei did not. Or I believe at this point, Adam. So once Helene realizes that Adam does not age, she calls him a devil, and she runs away from him out into a dark forest. Eventually, Adam finds out what happened to her, and she apparently died years later in a nunnery. We now go to the year of 1706. Benjamin Franklin is born in Boston, Massachusetts. There is a website called YamagatoFellowship.org. This website is shut down, and it did have a lot of information about the hidden histories of heroes. So Benjamin Franklin, born January 17th, 1706. Jumping to 1718, Benjamin Franklin finishes his formal schooling at age 9. 1723, Benjamin Franklin runs away to New York, Philadelphia, and London. 1725, Benjamin Franklin publishes his first pamphlet. In 1730, Benjamin Franklin marries Deborah Reed. In 1747, Adam Monroe actually marries Maria in Milan. I believe that was his second wife. I believe Maria was his second wife. She actually birthed 2 sons to Adam Monroe, but he mentioned that he didn't really like kids that much, and so she gave Adam's 2 sons some gold, some coins, and actually abandoned them. And these 2 kids were unnamed, but yeah, that was his wife, Maria, from Italy, Milan. In 1752, Benjamin Franklin conducts an experiment with electricity. Yeah. Anyway, 1762, Angelica is born. Now, who is Angelica? Angelica is actually one of the 10 wives of Adam Monroe. She lived to be 87 years old, and throughout the years, of course, people are going to question, their relationship. At some point, I guess after their marriage, she does say that he is her son, as their age gaps start to increase, and then at one point, she says that is her grandson, and she eventually passed away at the age of 87. And she is actually Adam's 5th wife. Yes. Now jumping to the year 1767, Joseph Priestley writes about Benjamin Franklin in his journal. He was just a man who wrote about the experiment that Benjamin Franklin did with his kite when conducting the electricity experiment. Now we go to the year 1777, and we jump right back to Adam Monroe, to our boy Kinsey. So Adam fights this individual named Evan, and Evan has the ability to replicate himself, just create copies. And apparently he copied himself during the Revolutionary War. And so the two of them fought, and at some point, Adam sought to pursue this man throughout a while, for like a couple of years. So after they had their fight and everything happened, Adam defeated Evan, and there was a slightly personal vendetta against the two of them. And Adam eventually found out that there were two Evans after he killed one of them. Eventually, Adam finds out that this man has the ability to clone himself, and so Adam was like, well, I can keep killing all the clones, but they're going to keep coming back unless I find the source. So during the Revolutionary War, Adam sought to find this individual named Adam who had the ability to replicate himself during the Revolutionary War. And he pursues him for a few months, not years, so I apologize for that. Now we jump to 1782, and at this point, Adam Monroe marries Frederica, and he marries her in Paris. He then marries Yumi in 1784, 2 years later, and then he marries Angelica in 1787. And I believe Angelica was his wife who died at 87 years old. So yes, at this point in time, this is when they actually got married. So that's why there was such a gap between his wives. She is his fifth wife, but Angelica was born in 1762, but she and Adam got married in 1787. 1790, April 17th. Benjamin Franklin, fortunately, dies at the age of 84. Now we jump to 1825. And this year, there's a building that is built around, or there's a street that's actually built around this time. Now, I believe the building that was made was Isaac's loft. Isaac Mendez's loft is built in 1825. And this was revealed in a side story called A Hero's Quest. I believe this was also on the website of Yamagato Fellowship. In 1849, about 14 years later, Angelica, Adam Monroe's fifth wife, passes away. And now we jump to the year of 1863. Now, in episode 15 of season 3 of Heroes, I know my voice just pitched up, but in episode 15 of season 3, which I believe went into volume 4, Fugitives, there's actually a sign in the background in one of the episodes. And the sign has a list of, it was like a historical list about some soldiers, how they passed away. It was that sign mentioned the year 1863, and that there were 13,000 men who lost their lives in the Battle of Russellville. So now we jump 1 year later, and Adam Monroe marries Maria in Atlanta. This is another Maria. Now we jumped about 20 years later, 1884, and a journal female is born. Now, Journal Female is there was an episode in Heroes when Mohinder's going through Chandra's books and notes about individuals who he suspect have abilities. There is one where there's a fingernail that's like in this little bag, or it's like taped on one of the journal's pages. That fingernail belongs to this woman, and looking carefully at those words, it mentions that she was born in the year of 1884, and that Chandra Suresh suspects that this woman may have the ability of teleportation, or no, telepathy. I'm sorry. So in the first episode, when they're mentioning, oh, there are people who can levitate or have telepathy and things like that, this was a reference to this woman, and yeah, and it was a theory that he had. Now, jumping to 1901, Madame Monroe marries Diane in Montreal, and she was his seventh wife. So yeah, he was married three more times after Miss Diane. In 1903, the Canaan Police Department begins serving the Canaan country. Basically, the Canaan country, the Canaan Police Department was the area where Jeremy, the healer, the teenage healer from season 4, he can touch people and heal them. When Noah was talking with Peter about finding this boy that the company had to get a couple years ago when he was 13, he mentions that it was in the Canaan area. So in 1903, the police department began serving with the Canaan country. I'm sorry, county. So yeah. All right. So 1910, Jules Gittleman, Hannah Gittleman's paternal grandfather, is born. Hannah Gittleman is the woman who approached Ted and showed him the needle in season 1, the needle that made the 2 marks on their neck that allowed the company to track them. Hannah Gittleman, that was Hannah Gittleman. So Jules Gittleman, Hannah's paternal grandfather, is born in 1910. In 1913, Zibby Blumenthal, Hannah's maternal grandfather, is born. In 1917, Siler's watch is produced in Germany. And this was revealed in 6 months ago. But yeah, 1917 is when Siler's watch was made in Germany. In 1918, Sarah Rosenberg, Hannah's paternal grandmother, is born. In 1921, Ruth Miss Nyo is born, and Diane Adams' modern wife passes away. In case you're wondering who Ruth Miss Nyo is, she is Hannah Gittleman's grandmother who actually fought against the Nazis in World War II. And yes, that was in 1921 when she was born. Now, in 1924, the Psi Alpha Chi sorority has its own chapter, begins its own chapter at Arlington University. Arlington University was the college that Claire went to with her best friend, her roommate. And yeah, the sorority sisters, they were called Psi Alpha Chi, and that was in 1924 that they began their chapter. Now, 2 years later, 1926, Adam Monroe marries Louisa in Chicago. 4 months later, Louisa unfortunately dies of alcohol poisoning, and she was his 8th wife. Now, we're going to jump ahead another 11 years, I believe, and this is 1937, April 20th. Kaido Nakamura is born. A year later, Joshua Gittleman is born. Joshua Gittleman is the father of Hannah Gittleman. A year later, in 1939, February 23rd, Chris Coolidge is born. Chris Coolidge is the uncle of Emma. Emma was the doctor from season 4 of Heroes who had the ability to see sound. So her uncle, Chris Coolidge, was born 1939. Now we jump to 1942. Pinehurst High School is established. Now, Pinehurst High School was the high school that Tommy went to in Heroes Reborn. I believe it was him and his girlfriend, I believe. But yeah, the name of that high school was Pinehurst High School. Now, according to the Varsity Jackets, the high school was established in 1942. So yeah. Now we're going to jump ahead one more year, and that is 1943. In 1943, Hannah Gittleman's her uncle is born, but this is her adopted uncle, and his name is David Royker. Now, also in April of 1943, Edith Parkman moves with her husband into Philadelphia home. Edith Parkman is the grandmother of Matt Parkman and the mother of Maureen Parkman. So the Parkmans have been involved with this Philadelphia home or apartment since 1943. And this is the same home where Molly was kept in season 2 and where Nathan and Matt have to go through their dream world to try and find her. Now, on June 4th of 1943, about 2 months later, that is when Maury Parkman is born. Now we jump into the next year, 1944. Ruth, the grandmother of Hannah Gittleman, is fighting with the Nazi resistance in Berlin and is unfortunately captured and taken to Auschwitz. Now, her adopted son, David Reuker, he's found in a German forest and he's left for dead. But his father shows up and actually grabs him and takes him to a monastery, I believe in Italy. And he is left there and no one claims him. No one claims David. So he's just left there for about a year, I believe, until the war is over. After that, David's name is changed to Don Rooker, and he moves back to the Americas, I believe, back to the States. Now, January 26th, 1944. Arnold teleports Charlie to this year to Milwaukee. Arnold was the time traveler who was working with Samuel in season 4 of Heroes. So January 26, 1944 is where Arnold brought her to back in time. Now we jump to about a year later, 1945. Angela Shaw is born. Angela. August 6th, 1945. Hero's grandfather survives the atomic bomb that attacked Hiroshima, Japan. And this moment is where Hero actually got his name from in the show, in our world, and in the show. He was named after Hiroshima and born with a legacy that he would be able to survive anything that the world had to offer. So, after September 2nd, sometime in 1945, after World War II ends, Don Rooker is the new name for Hannah Gittleman's adopted uncle, which is formerly known as David Roykier. Now, after the world ended, he goes by the name of Don Rooker. He has like four different names, and he's actually sent to his Venezuela's home, and his name is once again changed to Drucker. So that's another name change that this character has gone through. He's obviously deep in the secret alias world. So now we jump to yeah. So the same in 1945. Charlie, she's working at a factory, and she marries a man, and whom she has about four children with, and then she has seven grandchildren. So, 1945 is when Charlie meets her new husband, and she has her grandchildren, and one of them being Sally from the hospital where Charlie found her. Year later, 1946. Now, Edith Parkman begins subjecting her 3-year-old son Maury to excruciating mental anguish. Now, I believe this is where the mental abuse of Maury Parkman actually began. This was in 1946, and this is when Maury Parkman started going through his mental straining. Now, to jump into February 4th, 1946, Tracy Strauss's father is born in this year, 1946, and this is shown on Tracy's birth certificate. March 2nd, 1964, Hal Sanders is born in Henderson, Nevada. This is seen on Nikki's birth certificate. Now, with them being, twins and everything, I'm not sure how all that works out. And maybe they'll have Kelly on here. Kelly was Nikki's mom, but not much is really known about her. But yeah, so 1946, Hal, Nikki's dad, and Tracy Strauss's father are born these same years. Now, 1947, Hannah Gittleman's mother is born this year. Now, 1948, January 17th, Tracy Strauss's mother Rebecca is born. June 11th, 1948, that same year, Mindy Sprague is born. And Mindy Sprague is Ted Sprague's mother. Now, in 1949, there was another individual with that Chandra Suresh suspected of having an ability. And this woman was from Malaysia, I believe, and he believed her ability was of teleportation. And in his notes and his journal, he mentions that she was born in 1949. So now, in 1950, February 14th, Kelly Sullivan is born in New York, New York. Kelly Sullivan is the mother of Nikki Sanders. Now, in 1951, Linda Tavara is born. And for those who are wondering who Linda Tavara is, she was on the list, one of the characters on Chandra Suresh's list, Mohinder's father's list. And I understand that there were multiple lists at different points in the show throughout season one. I believe season three, there were actually different names on. There were two separate lists. The one that her name was on is when Mohinder had to guess his sister's name to get into his father's computer, or his sister's name was the password to get into his father's research. And when that happened, the list of names showed up. Linda Tavara was one of them, and her ability was to absorb people's auras. Apparently, at some point in the hero's verse, she actually came in contact with Molly Walker and was able to partially, I believe Molly Walker, one of the Walkers, I believe, and she was able to use the ability of mediumship. Um, there's details in that but yeah, she was born in 1951. Linda was. Now, 1955, the Odessa Sheriff's Department actually begins its operations. It actually begins operating. So in 1955, the Odessa Sheriff's Department begins. 1958, Adam Monroe marries Teresa in Los Angeles. After she murders him, and he comes back to life, he murders her. And that's how that marriage ended. 1958. Now we jump to 1961. There's a lot that happened in 1961. I believe there was actually an episode. So Mr. Suresh, Dr. Suresh, gets his badge at the Coyote Sands. So he gets his security badge on February 13th of 1961. In March of 1961, Alice reveals her ability to control the weather to Angela. This is March 1961. Now, March 5th, 1961, Dr. Suresh records a series of films at the time of the birth of Samuel Sullivan in Coyote Sands. In April 1961, Mr. Lieberman processes Dr. Suresh's films and documents Samuel's birth. Now, in May of 1961, Angela escapes Coyote Sands with Charles DeVoe. That is the man that Peter took care of in the first episode of the show. Daniel, that is Daniel Linderman, and Bobby. Bobby being Bob Bishop, which is L. Bishop's father, which is the man who had the ability to touch things and turn them into gold. And she told her sister to stay at the camp. Now, while being tested by Dr. Suresh, Alice panics and she runs away. Dr. Suresh grabs her and strikes her, and after doing that, he is repelled by her father's powers. So this man who you see in the flashback raises his hand and he uses this invisible force to push Dr. Suresh away when he's trying to grab, little Alice. That was Angela's father, and the woman next to him was Angela's mother. So those were Angela's parents that did that. And then as that happens, that's when that triggers a massacre. And this was in May 1961. Angela Charles, Angela Shaw, Charles DeVoe, Daniel Linderman, and Bobby Bishop, they make a resolve to start um, a company to protect people who have abilities. After this massacre happens, and the few of them are the last survivors, they decide, yeah, people can't handle us, so we're just going to have to do our own thing. And so in this moment, they decided to form what we know as the company, May 1961. Now, 1962, Primatech Paper opens. I believe their first location may have been Texas. A year later, no, that same year, 1962, in August 6th of 1962, Noah Bennett is born. 1963, Ernie Crumb, we know him as Arnold, um, the time traveler who worked at the circus in season 4. He represented the cafe or the diner that Angela and the other company founders went to when they decided to form the company. That diner is called Lila Mae's Diner. And Ernie Crumb, or Arnold, who was actually in the episode of 1961, when one of the workers mentioned to Charles, I believe, hey, we can't serve, you guys can't be dancing, you can't dance with a colored person. That was actually Arnold, the guy who was a time traveler who took Charlie back in time and who worked for Samuel. That was him in his younger days. He represented this diner during an eat off, an eating competition. And I believe yes, he wins. He wins that eating competition in 1963. Now also in January 1963, Chris Coolidge arrives in New York City. I believe Chris Coolidge was the father of Emma, the nurse in season four who worked with Peter. Oh, in February of that same year, Chris is listed as a person of interest by the NYPD. Interesting. Wonder what he did. Anyway, March of that same year, um, the company takes out a file on Chris Coolidge, and he's actually Emma's uncle, not her father. So yeah, 1963, a file is taken out on him by the company. And June 22nd of 1963, Connie Logan is born. Connie Logan is one of the specials who works with non-specials at the company, and her nickname is Eavesdropper, and she has the ability to alter a person's appearance. Now, in July of that same year, 1963, Angela, Bob, Charles, and Daniel attend a concert um, that Chris Coolidge is at. And so they wanted to test him out to see what his ability is and to kind of feel out his ability and things like that. And there is actually when they meet Kaido. They meet Kaido Nakamura there at that concert. And that's where it begins, where he joins the company. Um, at some point, Chris leads a riot out into the street, and he ends up getting shot. Um, they weren't able to capture him. He ends up, yeah, going crazy and starting a whole riot and trying to escape, and then he ends up getting shot and is pronounced dead at 10:30 p.m. Now, at the same time, this is when Maury Parkman introduces himself to the four founders of the company. So they actually meet Kaido and Maury around on this date, actually on July 12th at the same time. Now, July 13th, Angela has a dream on July 13th, and she writes about it in her journal. Now, I could be wrong, but from what I understand, this dream was the beginning of the season one disaster. Because as you know, Angela already knew about it as well as the other founders. They knew that the bomb was going to happen or there was going to be some kind of an explosion. And the whole deal of trying to elect Nathan was, hey, if you have this dream that's going to happen, how can we like set up the future to kind of be on our side? That was mainly Linderman's goal, but the founders knew about the situation before Isaac and our current crew had to do something about it. So from what I understand, this is the first time she's had this dream. I can be wrong, but I believe so. Now, 1964, February 2nd, Claude Rains is born. This is the homeless man, the traveler who is invisible and who eventually trains Peter Petrelli at some point in the first season. 1965, 1965, Arthur and Angela get married at a church in New York City, or in New York. 1966, Hannah's maternal grandfather dies at the age of 53, and Mindy Spriggs leaves Indiana and heads to California at the age of 18. Um, she is soon caught up in the Berkeley hippie movement. This was in 1966. Now, January in 1966, Maury Parkman immigrates to Los Angeles. In February 22nd of 1966, Julien Dumont is born in Belgium. This character, Julien Dumont, has the ability to replicate or clone himself. He did run an underground criminal operation and was at some point captured by the company and was once again recruited as one of them programs. And so he was the one of them. 1967, Linda Tavara discovers her ability to see other people's auras. Now, after killing a small animal, yeah, after killing small animals, at one point she kills Ida Mae Walker, and Ida Mae Walker is, I believe, the grandmother of Molly Walker, and Ida Mae Walker has the ability of mediumship. So after Lynn discovers her ability to see auras, after she killed some animals, she ended up killing Molly's grandmother. This same year, Nathan Petrelli is born, 1967. Now, at some point between June 5th and June 10th, 1967, Hannah's mother, Hannah Gittleman's mother, ends up fighting in the IDF. Now, 1968, on June 10th, Matt Parkman is born. September 14th, 1968, the same year, Eric Doyle is born in Omaha. Of course, we all know who Eric Doyle is, the puppet master from season 3 Villains, and eventually crossing into the rest of the show. But he was the puppet man. Puppet man. Now, November 8th, 1968, Dallas and his crew are sent out to River Delta in Vietnam to recover a downed A4 Skyhawk in the war. In War Buddies. A few days later, November 15th, Dallas is shot but is healed by Austin. Amarillo, Laredo, and San Antonio are all shot and killed. So that only leaves codename Dallas and Austin alive to carry out the mission to find the A4. Now, 5 days later, Dallas and Austin find the downed A4 Skyhawk, and its crew is, unfortunately, they were all killed. Now, wanting to continue the mission, Dallas suggests using the plane's uh, equipment, basically, to destroy the village in Ayuko in Vietnam. So later in the day, they witness an individual, and they witness Ayuko, and it causes the vegetation to start growing from the ground up. They end up setting off explosives and destroy the entire village and kill a lot of the villagers. And at some point, they find out that Ayuko was actually a person or an individual, a young girl. So now we jump ahead to 1969, March 28th. The Lone Star File is written. Now, the Lone Star File is the file that describes how Dallas and Austin met each other in the war and what their whole situation was. After the episode Company Man, when Bennett, fakes when he gets shot and then has the Haitian erase his memories, there was actually an extended story to that. And Bennett actually gets a hold of Hannah Gittleman and tells her, hey, there's some file called the Lone Star file, and it is at the Pentagon. So Hannah Gittleman actually seduces a man who works for the Pentagon and steals his credentials and is able to penetrate um, the Pentagon security. So once goes in there, she finds the Lone Star file, which Bennett told her to find. And when she finds the Lone Star files, it explains what happens between Dallas and Austin. And turns out Dallas and Austin were code names for Linderman and Arthur Petrelli. And this is how the two of them actually met each other. So that is the Lone Star file, and that was written in 1969. Now, 1971, Meredith Gordon is born. Meredith Gordon is the woman with fire who actually started the fire that fell over in the first episode of Heroes. She was actually the one responsible for doing that, or partially responsible for doing it. Now, February 16th, 1971, Dr. Suresh makes an entry in his research journal about an 87-year-old woman who may have the ability of telepathy. Now, March 15th, about a month later, he also does an entry for a 22-year-old woman from Malaysia who may have the ability of teleportation. Now, in 1972, Katerina and Ivan begin their life together. Now, Ivan was the man who was responsible for training most of the company agents, and his wife was Katerina. Now, in season 2, when Bennett was on the run, he and the Haitian, I believe they go to Germany, and they find this man. This man is Ivan. And Bennett knocks over all his stuff and ends up shooting this man. This was Ivan, and he was responsible for training most of the agents. And I believe he was the one who trained. I believe he's the one who trained Bennett as well. If that wasn't Thompson, then it was Ivan. But that's who that is. Also in 1972, after being fired from her job as a private investigator, Linda Tavara is hired as an informant. Now, as an informant, she was hired to find certain individuals. Now, she does look for 3 individuals, and the first 2 she turns over, but the third person, she ends up killing him and reporting that she couldn't find this particular individual. Now, this woman, Linda Tavara, being the evil person that she is, and having the ability to absorb auras, once she's questioned about the third person being missing, she ends up killing the informant who hired her, and she steals their notebook. And the notebook has information on all the missing people, but she was eventually going to be hard to find. Now, in the same year of 1972, Linda actually goes to the notebook and she finds Linderman's name. So at this time, Linderman is doing some odd jobs and he runs into Linda. And Linda tries to set up Linderman and actually steal his aura and his ability. I believe they were hiking and they found a wounded deer that was shot, and Linderman decided to heal the deer. And as he was healing it, Linda tried to sneak behind Linderman and absorb him and his power. But Linderman got the best of her, and after killing her, he ends up burning her body. He steals her notebook, which she stole from her former employer, and as he looks through the notebook, he finds Arthur Petrelli's name. So even though Linderman and Arthur met In the military, they actually had code names, which were Dallas and Texas. So this is when Linderman actually found the real name of Arthur Petrelli. So now that he has the notebook, Linderman heads over to New York City to find Arthur Petrelli to propose a deal. Now, September 23rd, 1972, Leonard Cushing is born. And Leonard Cushing is actually the uh, evolved partner of Thompson Jr. So Thompson was Noah's boss in the first season, played by Eric Roberts. And Eric Thompson actually had a son in the side stories. They called him Thompson Jr. And Thompson Jr. was the one of us, and the one of them was his partner, Leonard Cushing. Leonard Cushing had the ability to generate acid. So Leonard Cushing was born in 72, September 23rd. Now jumping to 1973, Meredith Gordon is actually born this year. January 3rd of 1973, Angela has a dream about January 3rd, and she just writes it in her journal. August 28th of 1973, Ted is born, and he is born in Los Angeles. I believe you can see this on one of his IDs in one of the first few episodes of the first season. It shows Ted was born in December on December 15th of 1973. The Walter Eckert Building has a dedication. Now, the Walter Eckert Building is the building where Siler was being interrogated in the fourth season after he lost his memory. It was in the fourth episode, I believe, of season four, and everyone's like, "Who are you? You know, where'd you come from?" And Siler was like, "I have no memory. I don't know who I am." So that building where he was being interrogated in Baltimore, that was called the Walter E. Eckert Building. This building is fictional, and it was actually named after Walter Eckert, who was a part of the art department in the series. Now, jumping to 1974, this is when the timeline gets kind of strange. 1974 is marked when Shanti contracted the Shanti virus. But also in this year, another character named Melvin Crumb is born. Melvin Crumb is the son of the time traveler that I believe the time traveler. It was Arnold, the character that Samuel was working with in the fourth season of Heroes. Now, where Arnold went to work with Samuel at the Samuel Bros Carnival, his son, I believe, was also at the carnival, but he was actually killed off by Danko and his men during the Volume 4 Fugitives situation. But Arnold's son Melvin is actually seen in, I believe, season three. His name is seen when Siler actually gets Elle at the beach, and he goes through her phone and he sees a list of individuals that have different abilities. Melvin's name is a list along with Sue Landers, the lie detector woman, and Sparrow Redhouse. Now, according to some dental records, April 8th of 1974 is when Mohinder Suresh is born. And according to some birth certificates, Nikki, Tracy, and their third sister Barbara are born in Beverly Hills, California, on August 24th, 1974, that same year. Now, on December 11th, 1974, Flint Jr., Flint Gordon is Meredith's brother, but he's also the character in Volume 3 who has the blue fire. He was born December 11th, 1974, in Kingsland, and unfortunately, his mother died during childbirth that same year. Now, during 1975, Mindy Sprague, which was Ted Sprague's mother, is involved in a fiery incident involving some turbines, industrial turbines. So this incident ends up putting her on the radar for the company. Now, in January of that same year, 1975, is when Karen Sprague is born. That is Ted Sprague's wife. Now, in October of 1975, after being put on the radar, Mindy Sprague is recruited by Angela Petrelli into the company, and Mindy becomes a company agent. Mindy has the ability to transfer and absorb and redirect energy. Now, in 1976, the Burnt Toast Diner opens up in either January or February, so sometime at the beginning of the year of 1976. Arnold is also born in that year. Now, with Arnold being a time traveler, it gets kind of weird, but his son was born 2 years before Arnold because Arnold was a time traveler and, so Arnold was actually born in 1976 and his son was born 1974. Yeah, I know, a little confusing, but yeah. Jessica, Nikki's sister, is also born this same year, and so is D.L. Hawkins. So D.L., Jessica, and Arnold were all born this year, 1976. Also, in the story of Saving Charlie, when the Burnt Toast Diner first opened and Hero took Charlie there, there was a couple, Barbie and Merle, and Barbie was one of the first waitresses during the grand opening, and she was waiting everybody. And Merle, her boyfriend, accused her of flirting with all the other customers and stuff. Eventually, he accused her of doing more. So Barbie was like, "No, we're gonna end it here." And so as she did that, her boyfriend got upset and ended up killing her there at the diner during the opening. And Hero wondered if his powers led him there because he maybe had to go back and try and save her too. But because that happened, after Barbie was killed, her boyfriend was executed, got the death penalty. But that happened in 1976 during the Saving Charlie book. June 1976, Mindy Sprague, Ted Sprague's mom, is given her first major assignment by the company after 8 months of preparation. And her first assignment is in Ecuador. Next year, 1977, Adam Monroe marries his 10th wife, Trina, and their relationship ends when Adam gets imprisoned that year. His wife eventually went on to have a few children and grandchildren, and she passed away in a car accident in 2001. Also in 1977, the company is founded. The company is officially founded by several individuals, and that same year is when Daniel Linderman reclaims or claims the Kinsey sword, and Richard Drucker, the uncle of Hannah Gittleman, the guy with a million aliases, he ends up he's very active back and forth with the company, and this is when he makes his last contact with them. This same year in 1977 is when the company also creates the power suppressing vaccine. And Victoria Pratt discovers the virus in a young girl, or Shanti. Victoria Pratt was the woman that Adam Monroe and Peter went to visit in season two, and she had her shotgun on them and was like, "Who are you people? How did you find me?" And Adam was like, "Oh, she's a villain," and she turned away, and But yeah, that was Victoria Pratt. Now, also on October of 1977, Victoria Pratt, Kaito Nakamura, and Adam posed for a photograph together. And November of the same year is when the company gets Adam under Adam's orders, which we've seen in a flashback in, I believe, season two, when Adam was trying to get the Shanti virus and Kaito says, imprison him. That was November 2nd, 1977. 1978, Isaac Mendez is born, as well as Simone DeVoe. They're both born this year, and at this point, Nathan Petrelli is 11 years old, and his uncle Tim takes him out to the coast, and Nathan decides to be a fighter pilot. Once his uncle takes him out there on a trip. January 3rd of 1978, Mindy begins her employment at it's a branch of the company called TMI, and it's where Adam Monroe was working when he was with the company. And after Adam got locked up, Mindy took over. The TMI section, there was like it was a power plant, and there was a lot of radioactivity. So with Mindy having the ability to control energy and things like that, it was very suited for her. A few days later, on January 7th, Angela visits Mindy to update her on a company assignment, and Nathan and Ted actually meet each other. 2 days later, Mindy gives her boss a list of violations that's going on at the TMI building that she works at for the company. January 25th of that same year, a few weeks later, Bianca Carina is born. Bianca Carina was a agent who worked for the company, and she's actually seen in season three, I believe, of Heroes Villains. After Siler gets Claire's ability, there are two agents that are seen on a monitor, recording monitor inside the vehicle. These two agents jump out and they go after Siler, and they try to tase him, and he takes it, and he launches both of them with his telekinesis. Um, One of those agents was Gail, and the other agent was Bianca Carina. I believe Bianca Carina was the woman who was the agent who got thrown into the SUV and smashed into the camera. Bob said that she was one of their best agents. She had the ability to breathe. To her lungs could adapt to any environment. She could breathe in any condition. So whether Siler got her ability or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's who Bianca Carina is, and she was born on January 25th of 1978. And on February of that same year, 78, Maury Parkman is assigned to the 3 Mile Island branch of the company, whatever they were doing there at that nuclear power plant. There is a nuclear meltdown begins on the Mile Island on February 6th, and Mindy is able to save everybody with her ability. So luckily she was there. Now, when Mindy used her ability to save everybody, her redirecting the energy of the nuclear explosion or the nuclear meltdown ended up causing a shift in the atmosphere, and it caused a blizzard to form. Now, the company founders had to get together after this, and during this situation, there was a meeting that was happening with the founders, and the founders decided that they needed to find a way to start tracking individuals that had abilities. Now, October 17th of 1978, Mohinder's father adds another entry to his research journal on a Polish or Russian woman. 1979, Haram, Claude Rains' first partner, I believe, or one of his partners, has his first case. Claude Rains was the Invisible Man who helped Peter the first season. One of Claude's partners was named Haram. In 1979, he takes his first official assignments. This year, Hannah Gittleman is finally born. Hannah Gittleman, being the woman who approached Ted and told him about the tracker system or the walker system. And March 28th of 1979, the 3 Mile Island experiences a major meltdown at this point. And so that begins to go to an end. Angela adds a few new things to Mindy's file about her ability, and she makes a memo to an individual named Alpha, whoever that may be. But this Alpha situation is in regards to a hero's quest, which was on a website that I believe is inaccessible about the hero's lore at this time. Angela also releases a memo on updating Alpha about the tracking system that they're using in October of 1979. A few months later, on December 20th, 1979, Brandon Lewis is born. Now, Brandon Lewis was an individual who had the ability to control vegetation. And his story was that another branch of the company actually had to cover up a crater that was formed. And so they got Brandon Lewis to go to this crater and try to recreate the vegetation there to cover up this huge crater that showed up by one of the powered individuals. So when that happened, they got Paulette Hawkins, D.L. Hawkins' mother, to use her ability to supercharge his vegetation powers. Well, when that happened, Brendan Lewis ended up turning into a forest himself. But this was the day that he was born in 1979, December 20th. 3 days later, after that happened, December 23rd, which is the day after my birthday, Peter Petrelli is born. The next year, 1980, Samson Gray actually sells Gabriel to Martin Gray and ends up killing Gabriel's mother. So this is when Siler's birth dad sold Siler to Martin, and this is when Siler's dad ended up killing Siler's mom. A year later, 1981, is when Maury leaves his home. So I guess that's when Maury decides to finally kind of run away and do his own thing and disappear. In April 23rd of the same year, 1981, Mohinder's father makes an entry in his research journal about a man from Mexico. Forgive me for not being able to pronounce Chilpanchingo, Mexico. Next year, 1982, Mohinder's grandmother tells him stories about the god Kali, or the goddess Kali. In 1982, Meredith Gordon's ability actually manifests for the first time. This is, Meredith Gordon's, her fire abilities manifest, and she ends up setting her house on fire and accidentally killed her father. This was in 1982. In 1983, Haram's first partner, or I'm sorry, Claude's first partner, Haram's first assignment actually fails in 1983. The individual was named Rollo Fasor, and he had the ability to absorb the hydration from moisture whenever he touched it, and he disappeared off the face of the earth. And so that ended up being his first failed assignment, unfortunately, Haram's first failed assignment. Now, also in 1983, Elle Bishop is born, uh, the girl with the electricity in season 2. And Rachel Mills' father ends up passing away in this year of 1983. Rachel Mills was in Fugitives of Heroes season 3, volume 4. And she was one of the two agents that was watching Claire and Alex when Claire brought Alex into her home, and those two agents were watching, trying to prove that she was hiding him and they had abilities and everything. And they ended up running toward the back and jumping into the swimming pool and escaping these two agents. One of those agents was Rachel Mills. Rachel was also actually in season 3, in volume 3, during the recruitment program when Nathan and Tracy and O'Hinder were giving everybody abilities. So they were starting with the soldiers. Rachel was one of those soldiers who was given the serum to have like test trials for giving soldiers abilities. And Rachel actually had the ability of teleportation. So, yeah, same actor, in volume 3 and in volume 4. So she had the ability of teleportation, and she somehow still worked with Building 26. But her father ended up passing away in 1983. Now, in 1984, on November 15th, Donna Dunlap was born. Donna, she was recruited by L. Bishop eventually, and she has the ability of telescopic vision. And so she was born November 15th, 1984. In 1985, Kate Bishop is murdered by a thief. This was Bennett's first, I believe, wife, and we see this in a flashback in season 4. That same year, a woman named Sylvia uh, first comes to the attention of the company, and she has the ability to grow and shrink at will. And the agents assigned to her were Thompson and Claude, the Invisible Man. On May 11th, 1985, Edgar, the man with the knives in season 4, and super speed, and on May 11th, 1985, both he and his father go to a soccer game in Bradford, England, and unfortunately, a tragic fire broke out, and Edgar ended up losing his father during this unfortunate disaster. Now, this disaster actually was real. It was called the Bradford City Stadium fire, and it happened on May 11th, same date, 1985. It was a real event, and there was a lack of fire extinguishers, so it was hard to fight against the fire. And it was during a soccer game. 56 people ended up dying, unfortunately, and 256 individuals were severely injured. But this was a real event that happened, and so it was incorporated into the side stories. And so Edgar, the man with super speed, he lost his father during that in the incorporation of that unfortunate event. And to jump ahead to a few months later, on August 10th, 1985, Quentin Frady is born from Heroes Reborn. Quentin was looking for his sister. He is born, but this is according to a fake passport. 1986, this is when Noah actually kills a repairman. Um, this repairman is someone that Noah accused of being associated with the individual who actually um, killed his wife, Kate. So in 1986 is when Bennett ended up um, killing this individual. Now, in the same year that happened, Hachiro begins working on the video game. He begins working in the video game industry, and this was the man who made the video game world and Heroes Reborn that Hero was jumping in and out of. Now, March 12th, 1986. Mohinder's father makes another entry in his research journal about a man with ties to Sweden. Now, in 1987, about a year later, Jessica Sanders dies by the hands of her father. As you know, Jessica and Nikki were abused by their dad, and Nikki lost her sister Jessica during the abuse, and so Jessica d- died in 1987 by her father Hal. The same year, Emil Danko, the man who was hunting people, the main man hunting people in Fugitives of season 3, he was given a Soviet military watch by his father on this year, 1987. Now, on September 14th of 1987, some information is printed about a modern-day Matahari known as Sylvia. And Sylvia was the woman who had the ability to shrink and grow at will. Now, the rest of these are logs of Eric Thompson traveling. And this is just the notes of those dates that he traveled. October 14th, he traveled to Madras. On October 26th, 1987, he travels to Cambodia. November 27th, 1987, Eric Thompson travels to Nigeria, Lagos. November 31st, 1987, Eric Thompson plans to travel to Dakar, which I don't think November 31st is actually a real date. December 1st, 1987, Eric plans to travel to Dakar, but the plans are aborted. And instead, on December 9th, 1987, Thompson travels to Yemen. On December 18th, he travels to Jordan. And on December 20th, he travels to Cote d'Ivoire. Actually, I've never heard of this, and I cannot pronounce this, but it is spelled Cote, lowercase d, capital I, Voire. I've actually never heard of that country. But yeah, he travels there on December 20th, 1987. And then 1988, Jules Gittleman, Handel's paternal grandfather, dies at the age of 78. In 1988, Noah Bennett and Sandra Bennett honeymoon in Berlin, Germany. Claude and Thompson visit Berlin and continue their assignment to capture Sylvia. She does escape, but she leaves Claude seriously injured in the process of her escape. Now, also in 1988, Eric Thompson travels to Astana in Berlin. His business there is involved with Claude and Maury Parkman, but whatever the business was, who knows? In January of 1988, Eric Thompson travels to Belgium in relation to an individual named Julien Dumont who has the ability to replicate himself. Apparently, the company has been using this individual for something called the Dumont system. So, him having the ability to replicate means they probably use his ability to maybe replicate certain individuals, but who entirely it's not very specified what the Dumont system actually was with this individual, but he was unwillingly having his ability used to create this Dumont system. Now, on January 7th of 1988, Thompson travels to Hartsdale, New York. On August 2nd, 1988, Mohinder's father makes another entry on a woman from Madison. and she has or may have telepathy. 1989, about a year later, Noah is trained by Ivan for the company, and Ivan was the Russian individual who Noah actually shoots and kills in season two when he's on the run. So 1989 is when Noah is being trained by Ivan for the company. This same year, 1989, is when Elle, who is now 6 years old, sets her grandmother's house on fire. The same year, Meredith is reunited with her brother, Flint. This same year, Vanessa leaves home and attends Yale University. Vanessa was Samuel's love interest in season four. And then when I believe once she saw that he had abilities, she was frightened and ran away. And then that's what made Samuel snap and become a villain, basically. So his love interest, Vanessa Wheeler, she went to Yale University in 1989. Now, July 6th, 1989, there was a first suicide attack in Israel, and Hannah Gittleman's mother and grandmother were amongst the casualties of it. A few weeks later, Hannah Gittleman tries to fly off the roof of her house but ends up injuring herself, and her father scorns her for it. Now, 1990, the Human Genome Project begins. Hannah vows to seek revenge on the individuals who unfortunately caused her to lose her mother and her grandmother, and so she wants to honor their legacy. 1990, the same year, Claire Bennett is also born, and this same year, Hiro Nakamura's mother dies and is buried at the I, Aoyama Cemetery. Sorry. Anyway, and the limits of Elle's abilities are also tested by her father. And at this point, Elle is 7 years old. Now, also in 1990, Haram, he fights in the Gulf War. Also, Haram and Claude attempt to capture Rollo Fischer. Unfortunately, he gets a female accomplice and they both escape. But at some point, Haram and Claude eventually find them. Once they find them, they're at a Paris hotel, and Rollo, along with another victim, are found dead at the hotel, and the female accomplice was nowhere to be found. And they end up finding out that the female accomplice was their leader of this crime organization. Eventually, this leader does end up being overwhelmed, and she ends up dying at some point. But it's really unspecified when and where. Now, December 24th of 1990, Matt Newsenberg is born in St. Louis, Missouri. So Matt Newenberg is a student who went to school, and he had the ability of enhanced memory. Basically, he could remember everything that he saw or was exposed to, just like Charlie. So he would use his abilities to get straight A's in school, or I guess it was always active, so it was easier for him to get straight A's, but it was hard for him to connect with people, and he always felt lonely. There was a woman who one day asked him to join a talent show, and so he did, and he was doing the talent show, and he ended up reciting the first 25 numbers or digits of pi, and so everyone called him a freak, for knowing 25 25 digits of that, of the number pi. So when that happened, he freaked out and he felt embarrassed and he ran off the stage. And so as he did that, he ran to the back and he actually ran into Elle, electric girl. And she said, "Don't worry, I'll protect you. Just follow me." So he trusts her and follows her. And she uses her ability to shock the stage and causes a blackout and everything. And they end up kidnapping him. So Matt wakes up and he's at the company and she teases him a little bit. And he's like, "Oh, what is this place? I thought you said you're going to protect me." And Elle's like, "Yeah, I'll protect you. No worries." And so he ends up being recruited into the company, and he has his ability to not only learn so much, but the company uses that ability to use him as like a download system for like backing up files and information about the company. And I guess they had this machine where they would like transfer certain pieces of information to him and everything. At one point, he was put in the machine to have the computer's data upload into his mind. And he was laying on the operating table, and Elle was there, and he was saying, "Hey, Elle, I'm scared. I don't know if I can go through this." And Elle was like, "Don't worry. Like I said, I always promise to protect you. You'll be okay." He's like, "All right." So he goes into the machine and they turn the machine on, and his brain can't handle all of the information given to him, and he ends up dying on the operating table. So that's what happened to that character. But some other interesting things happen with this character. He has a relationship with Elle, as in he was 17. He was a high school kid. So the relationship that he had with Elle was that she saved him from the talent show, and he said, "I thought you were going to protect me." And she said, "I am protecting you by bringing you here to the company." There was another incident that happened, and he ended up having some convulsions, and she used her electricity to shock his heart and regulate him and bring him back. So they had a few memories together. She would like kiss him on the cheek with her electricity and poke him on the nose. So they had a nice little, I guess, younger brother, older sister relationship. And yeah, but then what ended up happening happened. But yeah, that's what that character is. So he was born in St. Louis, Missouri on December 24th, 1990. Now, from this point on, most of the information that I talk about is going to be stuff that we are familiar with, and the names and the characters will be more familiar to you. Now, 1991, at Primatech Paper, Thompson hires Noah to join the company officially now that his training is complete with Ivan. And as he does this, Claude, the Invisible Man, shows himself to be Bennett's new partner. The same year, Claude looked into his previous partner, Hiram, and Hiram has decided to retire 6 months early. And so now Bennett becomes the new partner for Claude. The same year, Elle causes a blackout in 4 counties in Iowa. And this is when she was 8 years old. Soon after that happened, she starts living at the company's hospital and continues to live there for the next 16 years of her life. Now, in January of this year, 1991, January 11th, according to the Pinehurst files on Claire Bennett, it lists that January 11th, 1991 is the day that she was born. That's according to the Pinehurst files. Now, jump ahead to 1992. One of the individuals that Mohinder's father has logged into his research is born. In 1992, Alex Woodward is also born, as well as Dahlia Hayes are born. Alex Woodward is an employee for Renatus from Heroes Reborn, but he was actually more involved with the Gemini side. So if you ever played Heroes Gemini, which I know was for the PlayStation 4, was a video game. Alex Woodward was one of the employees. Dahlia Hayes was also from Heroes Gemini as well, and she was given the Gemini formula. She is actually seen, she's in the video game, but she's also in Heroes Reborn as a background character who was working with Hero Truther toward the end of Heroes Reborn when you see the individual supporting him. She was the darker skinned woman with the curly black hair. Now, also on unspecified dates of 1992, Sarah Rosenberg, Hannah's paternal grandmother, passes away, and Hannah's father sends Hannah to a psychologist. Also, in the same year, the Haitian erases Sandra Bennett's memories for the first time. In the same year, Elle spent her ninth birthday in a glass room with an IV of lithium in her arm. And the man of many names, Drucker, the half uncle of Hannah Gittleman, he flies over to another country and unfortunately ends up dying in the plane crash along with his pilot, Hampton Con- Con- Connolly. Now, in February 28th of 1992, Claude and Mr. Bennett are sent to an apartment, and as they go to this apartment to bag and tag an assignment, it explodes. And once they go inside, they rescue a child, which is young Claire Bennett, and they're able to save her from the burning home. This is February 28th. Soon after that, Mr. Bennett meets with Kaido, and Kaido then decides to take care of the child, or Claire. This is when Claire and Hero went back in time from 2007, and they ended up going back in time and trying to learn about the past and the catalyst and everything. This was in the show in that episode. The same time, Hero speaks with his mother Ishii, and she restores his memories, and she transfers the catalyst into him, and she unfortunately dies shortly after. The same, or of course, around the same time, this is when Claire pretends to be the babysitter and talks to Sandra and everything. And yeah, so all this can be seen in the episode Our Father when Hero and Claire go back in time. But this was on February 28th, 1992. Arthur Petrelli travels back from 2007 and takes the catalyst from Hero and traps Hero in this time and takes Claire back to her own time. Also, this is when Hero breaks into his father's safe and tries to destroy the formula, but is caught by Kaido, and then Kaido attacks him with the sword, and you see that the pieces are split into two, and Hero is rescued by Daphne and Ando just in time before Kaido ends up getting him with the sword. And the Odessa Register notes that the Odessa fires take place on this day, and 7 people were killed, including Meredith Gordon and Claire Bennett. And soon after that happened, Nathan Petrelli attends Meredith Gordon's funeral. Now, in May 21st, 1992, Phoebe Frady is born. Phoebe was in Heroes Reborn, and she has the like the black shadow type abilities. July 16th, 1992 is when Lyle was born, Lyle Bennett. August 5th, Sin Anders is born. Sin Anders doesn't really have much of a story, but she does have like a document, and her ability was to control people's emotions every time she touched them. So through physical contact, she could alter and control people's emotions, similar to um I believe Arnold, or one of the individuals that worked with Samuel. I believe it was Samuel's brother. who had that same ability. So October 14th, 1992, Jeremy Greer is born. Jeremy has the ability to touch people and give them life or death. He controls the flow of life and death through physical touch. He was in season 4. 1993, Mohinder's father publishes his book, Activation Evolution. And Mohinder does read a copy of this book at some point, but yeah, it specifies that it was in the year 1993 when this book was made, as well as the website. In 1994, about a year later, Cassandra Hayes is born, and this is when Oscar and Carlos go with their father to see a wrestling match. Oscar and Carlos were in Heroes Reborn. I believe Carlos was the I believe he was the one who wore the mask, and then Oscar had the ability to phase through walls. Cassandra Hayes was another character from Heroes Gemini, so she was born in 1994. In 1995, Matt begins directing traffic at the LAPD. Dale Smithers donates some of her blood for the first time for the Human Genome Project. Hiro, Ando, and Kimiko attend a carnival. I believe this was the Samuel Bros Carnival, but it may have been a different carnival. But this was in 1995. The three of them go together. Vanessa graduates Yale University this year, also in 1995, and Vanessa was Samuel Sullivan's love interest. December of 1995, Micah Sanders is born. Now in 1996, Copy Kingdom opens up. Copy Kingdom was the paper company that Bennett moved to and or worked at in season 2 at the very beginning when he tried to go into hiding. In this same year of 1996, Vanessa moves to a new home in Los Angeles, California. Now I don't know if this is a real address, so I won't actually say the address. But she moves to Los Angeles, California. And 1997 is when Hannah is transferred to Mossad. August 1st, 1997, an individual named Jeffrey Perkins sends an urgent memo to Pinehurst. Although this isn't really a big deal, it's still in the timeline, still noted as a piece of history. So I'm mentioning it. On September 1st of 1997, um, Lynette holds her first annual Labor Day barbecue blowout. Lynette is one of the workers who works at the Burnt Toast diner, and this was actually in the book Saving Charlie when Lynette holds this Labor Day barbecue blowout. Now, October 17th of 1997, the New York Chronicles prints an article that has a situation that's linked to Danko, but the specifics are not really said. But 1998, next year, Hero is in his final year of high school. Now, January 1998, Charlie gets sick with a 102-degree fever. She plays volleyball for her high school anyway, and she does take her team to the leagues, the championship leagues, even though she has been sick. Now, June 1998, Sammy is born. Sammy being the son of Lynette, one of Charlie's coworkers from the Burnt Toast diner. In the same month, June 1998, Farah is seen Farah is sent to Pakistan, and she spends the summer with her uncle Omar, who begins to teach her ways of a Pakistani tribe. There were a tribe of warriors, and Farah goes out there to train with him. Farah was the woman who had the invisibility in Heroes Reborn. And so, also the next month in July of 1998, Farah is actually doing some training and she's climbing a spider tree. So, as she's climbing the spider tree, she ends up getting bit by Queen Spider. Now, December 1998, Noah and Claude go to Moscow Russian to bag and tag the Russian. The Russian has the ability to alter his own age. So at some point, while being pursued, he ends up turning into a kid to try and morally test Bennett to see, oh, would you really shoot a kid? He ends up turning back into an adult and attacking um, one of Bennett's partners. It wasn't necessarily Claude, but I believe it was Ivan who he attacked. And as this was going to happen, he was going to kill Ivan, and Noah had no choice but to shoot and kill the Russian. And that happened in 1998. Now, in 1999, Gabriel Gray begins working on the Siler Watch. Noah ends up shooting Claude on the bridge. The same year, Isaac Mendez is hired by Comanche Comics. Noah Bennett tells Hiro Nakamura to transport Nathan and Melina, as well as Angela Petrelli, to 1999, so that way they would be safe in the past from Erica Kravid. And so they would be raised from 1999 and onward. 2001, Hannah Gittleman, does some training at the Mossad Training Center in Israel. In 2001, Adam Monroe's 10th and final wife passes away in a car accident. Farah manifests her ability for the first time to turn invisible. Um, September 11th, 2001, Farah's parents are killed in the September 11th attacks at the World Trade Center in New York. And November of 2001, Farah and her roommate, or her best friend at the time, Jamal, they witness a hate crime. And Farah uses her newly discovered abilities of invisibility to get involved and stop it. Also, in the same month of November, Farah encounters Bennett at an internship fair, and he encourages her to apply for an internship at Primatech. The same month, Angela has a confusing dream, which leads her to believe that the company may need Farah to save the world at some point. Now, in 2002, Isaac Mendez actually self publishes his own comic line. And I believe this was called Uncle Burke's Fine Comics. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what it was. Also in 2002, Costa Verde High School won the Southwest Regional Varsity Cheerleading Competition. At the age of 12, Matt Neuenberg manifests his ability for the first time. Matt Neuenberg was the young kid who had the ability to memorize everything. That same year, Ayakawa from the Tokyo Swallows strikes out 16 consecutive times at bat. Now, March 2002, Farah's invisibility is discovered, and she meets Melina as a toddler who works for Angela Petrelli. Farah also helps Linderman break out of Rikers Island's correctional facility. Yeah, I guess at some point Lenderman ended up becoming a prisoner, but this was in like a later side story installment. So yeah, those stories I don't know too much about, unfortunately. But yeah, so May of 2002, there is a BGH capital, and it forces small businesses out of Astoria. And unfortunately, this is the same month when Farah Nazan's roommate or friend Jamal is captured by an individual who works for the BGH capital. They are from the Godsend side stories, so I do not know anything about the Godsend, unfortunately, so I cannot give further information about the BGH capital. Now, this next section happens between 2002 and 2004, but these dates were never specified. So, we're going to start by saying Noah and the Haitian end up kidnapping West. West was Claire Bennett's boyfriend in season two, and they end up testing him. Claire and her mother arrive at Primatech Paper to pick up Bennett from work at some point. Um, West's ability manifests, and he escapes through the air vents, where he meets Claire for the first time. He calls her pretty and asks her for her help escaping, but the Haitian ends up wiping West's memories of the whole day. Claire is assured by her father that she was mistaken by what she saw. Now, in 2003, Noah and the Haitian apprehend Howard Grigsby. And Howard Grigsby was the individual who had the ability to release light. And he was actually the individual who damaged Noah Bennett's eyes and made him wear his glasses. And I believe the first episode, or the second episode, one of the season one episodes, Bennett talks to Claire in a flashback and says that, these glasses are, because his father wore them, when really it was this individual, Howard Grigsby, who actually damaged Bennett's eyes, which is why in a lot of flashbacks of the black and white flashbacks that we see throughout the series, Bennett never has his glasses. But if it was genetics, then he would have always had them. But he ended up getting them from this particular individual in 2003. Mr. Bennett also informed. Oh yeah, and this talk actually happens in 2003 also. In 2003, Vanessa, Samuel's love interest, ends up moving to another city in California. I'm sorry, a new home in California, still in Los Angeles, in the area code of 90031. In the same year, Christopher, Emma's nephew, I believe, also passes away at the age of 6, and this deeply hurts Emma. You can see a picture of him in season 4 on her desk as a little boy. I believe he had a blue. I believe he had a blue shirt on. That was her nephew. He died 2003. Now 2004, Ted and Karen get married. Isaac and Simone end up in a relationship, and also Eric Doyle gets imprisoned in level 5 security. Um, Howard Grigsby also was a level 5 detainee, also. Now, according to Noah Bennett's files, I believe in August 8th of 2004, Noah and Claude microchip Ian Michaels. Ian Michaels was the individual from season 4 who had a heavy tan coat and had the ability to basically create grass and create vegetation. So on 2004 is when they microchip him. Sometime in 2005, Noah observes and reports on Jeremy Greer developing his ability of controlling life, the flow of life and death. And Jeremy's memories are also erased shortly after. In February 12th of 2005, Mohinder's father makes an entry in his research journal about a 13-year-old girl from Colombia. In April of 2005, Nikki begins her sobriety. And we actually see this in the episode 6 months ago as she's giving her speech. On August 29th, 2005, Katrina destroys New Orleans, and Monica Dawson's mother dies in Hurricane Katrina, which was a real event that happened. Now, on September of 2005, Arthur and Angela are celebrating their 41st year wedding anniversary. And while they're having this party, Linderman is talking with Nathan, and there's a whole business thing going on in the background, a whole shady business thing. And at some point, Arthur implies that they may have to kill Nathan if he gets too close and starts messing with, their business dealings. After October 31st of 2005, Hannah Gittleman is recruited by Bennett, and as she's going through her training, she's learning how to fight and things like that, and her ability ends up manifesting. And her ability ends up being that she can communicate through like digital data and things like that. So at the end of the year 2005 is when Hannah Gittleman really discovered her powers. Now in December or Christmas, December 25th, Christmas of 2005, Charlie ends up living with her aunt Erica and uh, husband Phoenix. And this was actually one of the books. Now, 2006, Zach actually begins a history project to one of his classes, but he also attends a Comic Con in San Diego. And San Diego Comic Con is actually where the first unaired pilot of Heroes was shown, from what I understand. And it was the episode that was, or the version that was over an hour long. I know there's, I think, three, maybe four different versions of the pilot. Now, in the same year of 2006, Mohinder Suresh argues with his dad about his dad going to America for his research. Isaac also discovers his ability for the first time in 2006 when he goes to a gallery and shows his paintings and presents them. And a woman goes up to Isaac and says, "Hey, like that painting right there, that's of me getting hit by a bus. You're a sick person." And she runs out, and Isaac chases after her. And as she runs across the street, she gets hit by a bus. And Isaac's like, "Oh, oops, my bad." Anyway, the same year, Sarah Ellis lives in an abusive household. She learns she has the ability of persuasion by telling her stepmother to die during an emotional fit of rage. As this happens, her mother drops to the floor, and her cigarette ends up lighting the carpet on fire, and the house burns down. Sarah Ellis then takes on the alias name of Eden. Now, this woman named Sabine Hazel, is promoted within the company, and she's a human, and or she doesn't have superpowers, and she becomes partners with an individual named Julian Demont. Uh, Julian Demont has the ability to replicate himself, and I believe the Demont program is what they called it. Is when the company took his duplicates and used them as partners. So she ended up becoming the partner of one of his duplicates and didn't know it. At some point throughout the story, though, she did end up giving birth to a cloned child. Now, sometime before March 1st, 2006, Hannah Gittleman is on a mission in Tanzania given to her by Noah Bennett. The mission is a successful for the most part. She does get her target, but she is captured by the end of her mission. Eventually, she does escape and she falls off the grid and takes on the alias Samantha. She lives off the grid in Montana. In March of 2006, in Memphis, Tennessee, Meredith Gordon and her brother Flint rob a convenience store. Flint does get away, but Meredith Gordon is captured by Eric Thompson. Later, Thompson convinces Meredith Gordon to join the company as an agent. In New York City, after Siler has killed Brian Davis and has taken his ability, Siler does try to off himself with a rope, and Elle shows up and saves him. Noah sits in the van and monitors the entire situation, but this leaves Elle confused as to why they don't just get Siler. In April of 2006 in New York City, Arthur tries to convince Nathan to stop digging into Linderman's activities, but Nathan declines and continues to do so. Angela, Heidi, Nathan, and Peter all are celebrating. And at this point, Nathan is in a dilemma on whether or not he should prosecute Linderman and subsequently implicate his own father as well. After this celebration, Nathan and Heidi are driving down a highway, and all of a sudden, some individuals try to attack Nathan. Nathan's ability manifests and he flies out of the car by accident, and Heidi ends up crashing in the vehicle, which paralyzed her legs temporarily. Peter does have a vision about this and calls Nathan, or she shows up at the hospital. Also, Arthur and Angela arrive, and Nathan accuses his father and Linderman of planning the attempt. Later that same night, Angela asks Arthur if he had anything to do with what happened to Nathan and him almost being killed in the car incident. Around the same time, Mohinder's father gets to New York and he tracks down someone who is on his list of potentials who may have an ability. Now he does meet Gabriel Gray, who eventually does become Siler. And after Chandra tries to test Siler's abilities, he doesn't come up with anything. So he says, "This may have been a mistake. Sorry, you're not special. You don't have an ability." This angers Gabriel Gray, and he eventually tracks down Brian Davis and ends up obtaining his abilities after he ends up murdering him. Around the same time, Mohinder's father, Chandra Suresh, quits his post at Chennai University. Now, around the same time in Los Angeles, Eden McCain is nearly arrested by Matt Parkman. She is captured by the Haitian and later brought to Noah Bennett, who recruits her to investigate Chandra Suresh for him doing research on these individuals with abilities. Around the same time, Matt Parkman fails his detective's exam for the second time, and also around this time, Mr. Petrelli, apparently dies of a heart attack. Now, in Odessa, Texas, Claire becomes a cheerleader for Union Wells, and she replaces Laurie Trammell from the squad. Laurie Trammell was a student who was victimized by Brody previously before Claire, and Claire ends up getting Brody into his car and crashes the car and uses her ability to heal, but leaves him critically injured in the hospital. Laurie Trammell was the previous cheerleader whom Claire replaced. As Jackie was giving this news to Claire, there was a bit of a scuffle that happened between them, and Claire's hand ended up crashing into a glass, and she cut her hand. After they removed the glass, her hand recovered very quickly, and this is how Claire initially discovered her ability. In Las Vegas, Nevada, Nikki Sanders is approached by her previously abusive father, Hal. He does say that he wants to be back in her life again, offers her some money and some gifts. And so he meets D.L. Hawkins and he meets Micah, her husband and son. Something goes wrong and Hal's temper gets the better of him and he says this was a mistake and takes off. Nikki's alter ego emerges named Jessica, Jessica being the name of her sister, who unfortunately died by the hands of Hal through abuse. This alter ego, Jessica, then confronts Hal and rejects his offer and tells him to stay away. Now, during the same time, D.L. Hawkins plans a robbery job with his crew, but after a while, he backs out of it in fear of retribution as to what Daniel Linderman would do to him and maybe even his family. So he decides not to go through with it. However, Jessica, now being the alter ego of his wife, decides that she will take his place without him knowing, and so she does the job. After doing so, she ends up killing all the crew members as they turned on her, because they didn't like what she wanted to do with her share of the money, which was work on Micah's education and his future. And so, as they turned on her, she murdered the entire crew and left no witnesses. And then DL was left with the blame, even though he wasn't a part of it and he backed out. She then goes to a money launderer and she says that she wants the money now, but he says, no, it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a few months to really get this going properly. Now that D.L. Hawkins has been arrested, Nikki is now on her own and has to figure out how she's going to financially support. She decides to quit her job at the casino and instead decides to be a stripper. And she uses that to try and support her and Micah. As she's doing this, D.L. Hawkins is in prison, and as the police or the detective is interrogating him, he ends up his abilities end up manifesting and he slips out of his cuffs by accident during the interrogation. There's a second time when his ability ends up manifesting, and this time he actually runs out of the prison cell, or runs out of the prison itself. And after doing so, he decides to find out who framed him and to focus more on his family and how he can get back to them. At some point during this time, Nikki also borrows $30,000 from Linderman and transfers it into Micah's private school, making a $25,000 donation. Now, in Odessa, Texas, Eric Thompson and Meredith Gordon capture Daniel Pine. Daniel Pine has the ability to mimic metals and he can turn his body parts into metal. I believe he was a level 5 containee also. And for whatever reason, or for an unknown reason, we don't actually know if Sylar took his ability or not. But he was one of the villains that tried to get Sylar in the finale of Volume 3. And you do see his arm on the floor and his hands kind of moving on their own. So that was Daniel Pine. Now, when Meredith takes Daniel Pine down to level 5, she ends up encountering her brother Flint. And he says he was captured by an invisible man, most likely being Claude. Now, elsewhere in Texas, Elle is continuing to meet with Sylar, and Noah monitors it. Elle, at some point, obtains Sylar's list of individuals with abilities. And at one point, Elle introduces Sylar to Trevor. And as Trevor uses his ability or demonstrates his ability, Elle is very happy about it. And apparently, this made Sylar slightly jealous and triggered the dark side, which ended up making him kill Trevor, and at some point taking on his ability. Now, elsewhere in New York City, Angela overhears Arthur and Linderman talking about their attempt to take Nathan, to off Nathan, and Arthur ends up erasing Angela's memory after she's overheard this conversation. Now, shortly after, Linderman ends up healing Angela's mind. He heals her memories, and as she remembers everything, she then uses the Haitian to secretly suppress Arthur's telepathy, so he's unable to read her mind. She ends up poisoning him after the attempt on Nathan's life, and when his body falls to the floor, Nathan arrives. Nathan sees his father unconscious and calls the ambulance. So paramedics show up and take Arthur to the hospital, and at the hospital they say that Arthur died of a heart attack. And this was done before Angela could properly dispose of Arthur's body. So when this happened, his body disappeared at the hospital, and he was secretly being kept alive, although he was paralyzed. There was a funeral service that was held for Arthur at the Petrelli home. Now, in April 24th of 2006, Charlie celebrates her birthday at the Burnt Toast Diner in Midland, Texas. Hiro shows up from the future. Hiro also tries to call Yamagato Industries to speak to Ando, and his past self ends up answering the line, says, "Oh, Ando's not here at the moment." Um, Hiro also goes to the mall on this date and buys Charlie a Japanese phrase book, and this was on April 24th. Now, April 25th, Hiro gets a job as a busser at the Burnt Toast Diner. Hiro also leases a new apartment in Midland, Texas. 3 days later, on April 28th, Hiro has a housewarming at his new apartment. And this happens in the Saving Charlie book. Lynette ends up giving up smoking in May. And about a month later, Sammy, her son, turns 8 years old. Now, around June 15th, Jessica registers the Cadillac in Nikki's name, the same Cadillac that was used as a getaway vehicle for the individuals who robbed Linderman. And in June 28th of 2006, Hiro has his first kiss with Charlie, although there is a slight plot hole with that. But also, at that same time, Hiro teleports from Midland to Yamagato. He ends up going back to Midland after a 34-hour trip and gets back the next day. Now, in July of 2006, Audrey Hanson is assigned to the case of Siler. At some point, she is pursuing Siler, and I believe this is in Chicago, where there's an individual who's been killed by Siler, and Audrey Hanson ends up seeing Siler in the crowd. So Audrey jumps into pursuit and chases him, and when she finally catches him in the subway, she tells him not to move and releases a few shots. And when she runs up to the body, Siler gave his coat to an innocent homeless man, and she ended up accidentally killing this individual by accident. And Siler just laughs as he escapes. Also, in this month, Ted Sprague is on a business trip to Kansas, and he ends up getting bagged and tagged by the company. Also, in the same month, Alejandro and Gloria begin dating. I believe Gloria is Alejandro's wife in the second season, mentioned in the second season. Also, in the same month, Hiro and Charlie begin what Hiro calls The Summer of Love. In this same month, Elle is also assigned to spy on Claire. Elle thinks it's a waste of time, but Bob, her father, thinks otherwise. Now, the next month, July 1st, Molly and James Walker go to a zoo, and Molly meets an out of control time traveler, Hiro Nakamura. James Walker was Molly Walker's father, and he was in the first or second episode of Heroes, and he is the man who was sitting at the table and his body was frozen, and the top of his head was sawed off. And Matt was going through the house and found Molly in the stairs. James has the ability to freeze things that he touches, and this was the individual who Siler got the ability from when Hero tried to stop time and cut Hero's head off, and Hero moved and grabbed the sword and froze the blade and caused the blade to snap. That was James Walker's ability, also Molly's dad. Now, August 19, 2006, Hiro Nakamura accidentally time travels to the morgue on the day that James Walker's body was being moved, and he ends up witnessing James Walker's body. Now, in September of 2006, Claire begins her junior year at Union Wells High School, and she becomes the co-captain of the cheerleading squad. Now, in sadder news, in September, in the same month, around the same time, Daphne's mother, Mrs. Millbrooks, ends up passing away of cancer. And also in September of 2006, Matt actually talks with Knox, with Benjamin, and Matt is trying to talk to Knox and tell him, hey, stay away from these bad guys, stay away from these bad influences. And, Knox is like, okay, I'll get out of it, no worries. Well, at some point, Bartell, this gang leader, ends up threatening Knox. And after the threat got a bit more serious, Knox's ability ends up manifesting, and Knox absorbs the fear of the individuals in the room, and that ends up turning into strength, and he ends up accidentally killing Bartell. Well, at this point, Matt starts to question Knox about him, saying, hey, what happened to this guy? And Knox replied, oh, I think he got eaten by a shark. He's like, it doesn't matter, I'm the big, I'm the big man in charge now. You can actually see this was in the DVDs. They're seen as deleted scenes, but they were released in parts as like the heroes webisodes around the time of season 3. In September 4th of 2006, Hero, Charlie, and Lynette celebrate the 10th Labor Day barbecue blowout at the Burnt Toast Diner. On September 8th of 2006, Hiro Nakamura actually posts his first blog on Hero's blog. On the same day, Charlie claims to have been bitten by a spider and has to go to the hospital. This was seen in the Saving Charlie book. On this day, Hero and Charlie are engaging in foreplay, and Hero's abilities activate, causing him to accidentally time travel about 3 weeks in the past. Hero does return to Charlie, but is not given a very warm welcome. Now, a few days later, on September 12th, 2006, Charlie ends up going out on a date with Lloyd. The next day, Charlie does tell Hero about her blood clot. After this, Hero ends up accidentally teleporting to October 11th, 2006. Now, 10 days after that happened and she told them about the blood clot, on September 23rd, 2006, there was a celebration in Japan. Um, it was a as an autumn equinox, and Hero and Charlie planned to go there. Now on September 24th, which is actually today, but September 24th, 2006, Charles DeVoe becomes comatose, and Charles DeVoe is Simone's father, the individual that Peter was taking care of in the first episode of Heroes. One day later, September 25th, 2006, the first episode of Heroes premieres. Next day, on September 26th, 2006, Mohinder's father tells Mohinder that someone is following him and is trying to steal his research. That someone being Noah Bennett. 2 days later, September 28th, 2006, Chandra Suresh is murdered by Siler. In Madras, Mohinder is teaching a class where he is told about his father's death by his friend. I believe his friend's name was Neron. And later, Mohinder ends up encountering a man with a horn-rimmed glasses who was in his father's old apartment looking through his father's research. On that same date, Noah Bennett calls New York and says that he will have copies of Chandra Suresh's research sent immediately upon his arrival. 2 days later, on September 30th, 2006, there is a suicide bombing on a bus in Israel. This was 3 weeks after Isaac Mendez painted this painting. All right, that's all I got for you guys. This was a timeline from the ancient Egyptian days all the way up until right before the premiere of the first episode and the pilot. I really hope you guys did enjoy this. This was my first attempt at doing something like this, and it was very difficult for me to get this recording done and to do this recording and to do all these things. But this is my contribution for the 19th year anniversary of the series. So I hope you guys do enjoy this. I'm sorry that it took so long. I honestly thought this was maybe going to be about a 30-minute video. Somehow it ended up being over 2 hours. But I hope you guys do enjoy this. And if you want more, if you want me to do the other timelines, let me know. I will get better as I continue to do these things. I'm new, but thank you for supporting me anyway. And I hope that this information can somehow help anybody or whoever listens to it. But thank you.